So, as being reiterated, Taqwa is in the heart, and it is what is developed when you are conscious that you have a Lord who is watching you, and that his watchful gaze is perpetually upon you, and that keeps you on guard, it keeps you on check, it makes you to be fully aware that you cannot just act or think or do anything as you like, and it also reinforces the need for you to subjugate your own desires for Almighty Allah's will. That is, when you have to choose between doing something and it's against the will of Allah, then you must not do such things. And if you are able to get to this level of consciousness, then you have Taqwa. Those who have Taqwa, they will always fear to do what Almighty Allah has forbidden them to do, and they will always struggle to do as much as possible of what Almighty Allah has enjoined them to do. And these are the things the Holy Prophet came to teach us. He came to teach us to be conscious of God to an extent that when we deal with human beings, we see Almighty Allah first before we see those human beings. That is, we know that the contract we have with every human being is a contract between us and God, and that whether he is aware or is not aware, we are expected to do good to him, and that in case we decide not to do good, Allah is seeing us, and Allah is recording our deeds, and Allah is going to chastise us if we do the wrong thing. And once we get to this level of consciousness, then they can say this person has piety, this person is conscious of God. And the Holy Prophet says, when somebody has piety or somebody has the consciousness of Allah, it is not written in his face. Most often we will relate beauty with actions. It is not always the case. You can see the most handsome of women, the most handsome of men, and the most beautiful of women, but it does not mean that they have the most beautiful character or the most handsome character in their hearts. And most often you will see people that are not beautiful or handsome, and you will see them possessing high moral virtues. This is telling you that Taqwa, God consciousness, is hidden in the heart, and you can only see the signs of a pious person from the way the person interrelates with others. Someone who is careful not to trample upon the rights of others, that person is somebody that has piety. Someone who quickly tries to do good to every human being and is not discriminatory in his approach to sharing of what belongs to the people or belongs to a community, and is not partisan and is not one-sided. All of these are signs of somebody who has Taqwa. Someone who is not, given to tilting the scale of justice towards those people that he calls maybe his relatives or his friends or his kith and kin. Someone who stands out for justice at all times, irrespective of whether those people are close to him or they are far from him. Someone who is ready to uphold sincerity and truthfulness in all his acts and deeds. All of these virtues we learn from the Prophet as a role model. And in this video that we are discussing, Bilal, who was somebody that is, as low a class in the social eye as a slave, through the coming to the Prophet, became freed. He became a free man, and then he became one of those adept Sahabas that rose to the level of being the one to call the Adhan. And the moment the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam left this world, he felt so pained and so touched that he left Medina and then went to his own another place far away, until one day when he had a dream, and the Prophet said, Have you left us? You did not bother to check us? That was in the dream. And he had to take, to journeying back to Medina, going to where the prophet was laid in his rawda, making obeisance, making dua, and then meeting the Khalifa Abu Bakr Siddiq. And of course, when Khalifa Abu Bakr Siddiq saw him, they were so happy and they remembered the good times. They remembered the good times of the prophet, the time when he used to make the adhan and the whole Makkah will start coming for prayers. So when he got there, Khalifa Abu Bakr requested that he made the adhan, but he couldn't make the adhan because he was touched. He was still missing the prophet, and he was crying every time that he had lost, the physical, that he had lost that one because the prophet had gone. And then after he refused to make the adhan because that will bring back the memories, and he will start crying. So he said he couldn't make the adhan. Then the grandsons of Rasulullah, Sayyidina Hassan and Hussein, came running. They've missed him, they hugged him, they ran around him, they were so happy to see him, and they said, won't you make the adhan for us, as you used to make in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And he had no option, he couldn't say no to this Ahlul Bayt. So he had to start making the adhan, and when he made the adhan, and you know that the text of our adhan, when we say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, I bear testimony that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and I bear witness that Rasulullah is the messenger of Allah. At that point, he remembered the prophet and he started crying. He couldn't continue even reading, doing the adhan. He was so emotionally wrought that he stopped, and because the moment he said Allahu Akbar in his adhan calling, people of Mecca started coming out and rushing out. Some were even thinking, has the only prophet come back? Has the prophet come back? Everybody was in that state of missing the prophet to the extent that he couldn't continue. And this is how somebody of a lowly class became one of those people. When you hear his voice, the whole world will turn. And this is telling you what true submission to the will of Allah means. When you say you are a Muslim, have you imbibed this quality of treating human with equality and knowing that there is no one that is greater than the other except with Taqwa, except by Taqwa, except by the good things you are doing, and that when you see two people competing in doing good, the better one is the one that is doing the greater good to mankind, to humanity. And this is the lesson the Holy Prophet came to teach us. He came to teach us to know that we are all equal before Almighty Allah, and that we should treat human beings with respect. We should treat human beings as amana, as Allah's trustees that should, be catered for. You should be careful the way you deal with them. You should respect them. You should keep whatever is between you and them sacrosanct. These are part of the things the Holy Prophet came to teach us. And of course, there is no favoritism because of your tongue or because of your race. The Holy Prophet is an anti-racist person. He never made any lightness towards any human being except by the standard of Taqwa. Not by the color of the skin, not by the language of the tongue, no. And that is why, as I said, he said the Arabs should not think they are superior to the non-Arabs. The black should not think he is superior to the white. The white should not think he is superior to the black. Everyone is equal in Allah's sight, except those ones that have struggled and then become more conscious of Allah, becomes more pious. Those are the people that have higher stations of respectability before Almighty Allah. And when it comes to treating people with equity, the Holy Prophet has exemplified this many ways. Look at Julaibib, who happens to be a disabled person. During the time of the Prophet, he got the best of respect, because when he was rejected by the society, the Holy Prophet's abode became his place. Every time he will seek, listen to the Prophet's hadith, listen to his sunnah, listen to the way he does things, and the Holy Prophet accepts him to an extent that he became so close to the Prophet, to an extent that the Prophet, despite Julaibib's disability, despite everything that is with him in terms of deformity, in terms of shortness of height, in terms of being a black person, being this and that, the Holy Prophet went out of his way to marry for him a very beautiful Arab girl, to the extent that people became surprised that Julaibib is now somebody who is the husband of a very beautiful, pretty Arab woman of a very high or great noble lineage. And not only that, he loved the Prophet to the extent that when they had to go for expedition, he was one of those who carried, a sword or the things of all those things that you use to fight, the armor, all those swords and all that you have to carry. And these things even look like they are bigger than his height. But for the love of Rasulullah, he went and faced the enemies. He fought the enemies, even to the detriment of his in-laws, who did not want him to leave their daughter. He said he will never sit down in the house when the Prophet is facing the enemy in the battlefield. He has to go. And he left the entire family, went and then partook in this battle. And of course, because the enemies were fierce and because of what Allah has decreed, he lost his life. And when he lost his life, when they were doing counts, the Holy Prophet could not see Julaibib, and he has the other Sahaba to be in search of wherever they can find Julaibib. And when they found him, they found that his body has been mutilated by the enemies. And the Holy Prophet gathered this and then asked a grave to be dug. And then he now said, Julaibib is from me and I am from him. Julaibib is of me and I am of him. Julaibib became so close to the heart of the Prophet. The Prophet carried his corpse and then made prayer and said, Julaibib is from me and I am from him. And this is a very great thing for a Sahaba that has been rejected by the entire community, by the entire society, to have attained this high status with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What does this teach us? It teaches us that even we that are saying we are leaders, we should not be overly proud. We should not be someone who creates barricades or gaps between ourselves and our subordinates. We should lead by example. We should lead in a manner. We can be firm, yes, we must be firm, but definitely we must be friendly, we must be amiable, we must have feelings for our subjects, we must do the right thing, we must guide them towards the right path. We must ensure every time that we practice equality among men, and we must ensure that things of favoritism or racism or love of somebody because of his tribal descent or because of his color is not part of those things that we use to judge or take decisions as leaders. We ask Almighty Allah to continue to let the examples of the life of the Prophet be a shining lamp to guide our steps in life. And then we ask Allah to cleanse us from all our base blameworthy character, and to remove what is called arrogance from our path, because arrogance led Satan to become of the lowest. We should avoid undue pride and arrogance, and we should treat people with respect. We should appreciate that every human being is a special architecture of Almighty Allah. So, and also is a vicegerent, a custodian of his secrets. Therefore, we should respect the handiwork and the handicraft of Almighty Allah by being good to human beings at all times. May Allah continue to polish our hearts with His remembrance, and then help to transform us from those base, animalistic kind of human beings to that high level angelic, high virtuous thinking human beings. We ask Allah to accept these little efforts from us, and then to make our steps firm on Sirat al-Mustaqim. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. We thank Almighty Allah for what He has permitted us of what we are doing this evening. May Allah accept it from us, and we ask Allah to be with every one of us and to make our nation great. All those issues, challenges that we have, we ask Almighty Allah by the light of Rasulullah to take the trouble away from us, and then to make our nation great again, and then to transform or change the hearts of those people who do not have the patriotism or the sincerity to be true patriots of this country. We ask Almighty Allah to change their minds, to soften their minds, to make them love their nation and not be saboteurs doing things that is anti-government. This is our prayers. Ya Allah, grant us many opportunity in future to listen to your words and to learn by it and to gain from its beautiful admonitions. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.